Thank you. So everything I see is Leelaa, huh?
Yeah.
That's flash. Anybody have fun with that this week? Apparently a lot of people got it.
Therefore they didn't beat us?
That's right. This Leelaa.
Well, I started a new job. One of the things that I have to do is I'm just waiting by the phone for calls to come in. And as the week progressed, there appeared to be some pressure. And I was able to just completely say there's nothing but the dance. And of course, everything worked out fine. But it was interesting. I could just take it and toss it aside.
Yeah, you get the sense of the half a step back when you look at it that way?
Yes. Yeah.
See, that's the point. If you can, I say if you look at it as Leelaa, it's a half a step back, and you find that you're looking at it now instead of caught up in it. Actually, if you look at it as anything, Leelaa is a nice word, but if you look at it as anything, the transcendence is that you're looking at it instead of being caught up in it. Barbara says, the sixth script step is living in the fourth dimension, and she characterizes that with the statement, is that so? And that's looking at it. Looking at everything rather than being caught up in it. You can look at everything and say, oh, is that so? Is it true or is it the Leelaa? So, everything I see as Leelaa really boils down to, is that so? Is a nice place to live. So let's do human consciousness and hypnosis tonight. That would be a good chunk for tonight. We'll get us most of the way through chapter 4. And that's page 58. For those of you who want to read along. And let's do it as usual. We'll do it read a paragraph and then pause and see if anybody wants to say anything.
Human consciousness. Human consciousness is not a covert expression. There's only one consciousness, and it's not human. It's the consciousness. When we say human consciousness, we're talking about human beliefs, universal human beliefs in powers other than what is, including the belief that these powers have effects. We humans believe that germs have the power to cause disease, that medications have the power to heal physical and mental problems, that there are economic laws that can cause lack, and that we're separate, independent, and on our own. Human consciousness is nothing more than all the beliefs and powers other than what is. So we'll use the term universal human belief.
Yeah, we talk so much about consciousness, and the tremendous problem with using that word because we use it so many different ways. So when we talk about human consciousness, we really just mean everything that humans believe. When we talk about world mind, we really just mean everything that humans believe. And all these terms are pretty much the same. And the other thing we need to be is probably need to be distinct between consciousness and awareness. We tend to talk about consciousness, developing our consciousness and developing our consciousness growing. And that's not true. Consciousness is what grows is our awareness. Our consciousness, what develops is the extent to which we're aware of consciousness. But in any event, what we're talking about here, we're talking about human consciousness. We're just talking about what human beings believe. Okay? Go ahead, please.
All of the powers in universal human belief have the potential of being used for good or evil, of being used to create harmony or discord. Electricity brings light and can be used for executions. Medicines can cure or kill. When we get into mental powers, there's good kahunas and bad kahunas, white brotherhoods and black brotherhoods. As soon as there's more than one power, we have good and evil, right and wrong, dualism, all the opposites.
According to the Bible, we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden because we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Not that we believe what the Bible says, but it is a good allegory.
The belief in good and evil was introduced and paradise was lost. Suddenly there were ideas that good caused discomfort. Suddenly there were lack and limitation. And suddenly there was human suffering. By the time you tally 5 causes of suffering: ignorance, ego, aversion, attraction, and the fear of death arose as a direct result of the belief in powers other than what is. In other words, universal human beliefs mean suffering. Being human means that we are playing a role that believes that affects our powers, and therefore we experience suffering. Universal human...
Hold on a second, man. Maybe we should talk a little bit about Buddha. Buddha had 4 principles, 4 great principles. And the first one is essentially that life is suffering. And he means human life is suffering. And it's the same stuff as knowledge causes of suffering. It's just all the human belief in good and evil and in powers other than what is. The reason that being human causes suffering is even when we have good stuff, it always turns bad, and even when the nature of the Leelaa is changed. It's constantly changing, so if it's good, we're immediately afraid that we're going to lose it, because we are, because everything changes. Everything you have will be gone, and everything you don't have will show up and such like. And it's the constant turning over, and it's the constant fear that we're going to lose things or get things we don't want, or that some power is going to have affliction over us, or that we're going to get sick, or we're going to die, or we're not going to get what we want, or we're going to get, all those things. That's where the suffering comes from. It's the mind game that comes about from the belief in duality, that some things are good and some things are evil. As soon as we believe something's good and something's evil, then we want the good and we don't want the evil. Okay? So it really is the belief in good and evil. And I love it, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, We know this is good and this is evil. There's no knowledge of good and evil, because there's no good and evil. But we think we know that this is good and this is evil, and that sets up this whole thing about wanting what's good and not wanting what's evil. And that's the cause of all this turmoil, because now our whole life is devoted to trying to acquire the good and trying to avoid the evil, or get rid of the evil, and attract the good. And we spend all our time spinning trying to do these things. So that's what that's about.
Aversion and attraction would be to evade the bad and to go to the good, or is aversion like resistance behavior? Or
no, aversion, I just mean aversion, avoiding, this is the whole thing about desire. Desire is the cause of suffering. I desire this, that's attraction, and I don't desire that. I have an aversion to that. So that's exactly what it means. My personal belief that this is good for me and that's bad for me results in aversion to the bad and attraction to the good, And so I spend my life trying to avoid the bad and acquire the good,
So with this head full of knowledge, and it's clearly not working, how do you stop judging things as good and evil?
See it clearly. If you see clearly that there is no good and evil, if you see clearly chapter and the second chapter, if you keep looking at it, when you see clearly that the reason something is, the only reason something is good is because I think it's good. Okay? And the only reason something is bad is because I think it's bad. Alright? That it's my labeling of it that makes it good or bad. Things are not intrinsically good or bad. In their nature, there is no goodness or badness. The goodness or badness is always added by the individual human mind. I think it's good, and you may think bad what I think is good, and vice versa. Or I may think tomorrow bad what I thought was good today, or I may discover tomorrow that what I thought was good today turned out to be bad, or whatever. You know what I mean? If you really see that good and bad is your own personal condition. That's what that stuff earlier about is that mind is unconditioned. Those conditions aren't in mind. Mind, or in the stuff in mind. There's no good or bad in the stuff out there. It's all my own personal labeling. Now, my personal labeling may be conditioned by society, but still, it's what I believe, whether I've been trained to believe that, or whether I've thought about it and believe that, or whether I've developed an addiction for it and believe it, it's irrelevant. It's not in the stuff. It's in me. It's my belief that makes things good or evil, or short or full, or right or wrong. You know, there just isn't any of that. That's not in the nature of anything.
And of course, the next question is, how do you see it clearly? And I can almost hear you.
Keep looking.
Right.
By paying attention. By watching yourself. The more you can stay present in the here and now and watch yourself, when you think something's good, when you catch yourself thinking something's good, look at that.
You know, like enjoying something or enjoying some of those kind of things?
Yeah, well, I don't mind you enjoying things, but if you catch yourself labeling something good, look at it and ask yourself, is it good? You know, did God tell me it's good? Why do I think it's good? Where did that good come from? Look at everything and you'll see that, you know. It's a trivial exercise in every case, if you stop to do it, to realize that there's nothing that the fact that you're calling it good is not in the nature of the thing. It's in the nature of your belief, which is determined by your society or your religion or what have you, you know. And if you think about it, you'll understand immediately that there's probably a billion people in another society that thinks it's bad. And all the stuff we think is good, the Arabs think, you know, the Muslims think is bad, you know. I mean, McDonald's is, you know, the evil of Satan in some countries, okay? And it's a cheap sandwich here. Right? Okay? Entirely our arbitrary labels. And our labels are almost invariably conditioned, not thought out. There's almost nothing that you think is good or bad that is a result of your consideration of it and your evaluation of it. Almost everything that you think is good or bad is because the people around you, you in the society, you and your parents and teachers and church and everybody else has conditioned you to believe that.
In that way, I find like it's so important to be careful who I choose to talk to about things.
Mm-hmm. Sure. You're starting to see that. You're starting to choose your sources of conditioning, at least.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Are you including acts in that, such as killing another person? Okay, just killing another person.
And yeah, I certainly include that.
You include that.
Absolutely. There's nothing evil in killing.
I said more Kool-Aid, please.
No, killing is not evil.
As I recall, Joel used to make a distinction between some of the things, the horrible atrocities that people did. He didn't say the person who did it was bad, but that the acts were not really nice.
Not really nice. But nice is no different than evil. Nice and Right and wrong, nice, all the same stuff. Joel would say that the person who committed the murder was not evil because the murder was a personal act. And that what in fact happened there was with the hypnotism, which is our next section here, that the human belief expressed itself in him by that act of murder. And that's just what happened. And now society, this word about themselves, would like to call that evil because they don't want murder running around. And Joel would not say there's anything wrong with incarcerating people like that, keep them off the street so they don't do that, but he would never label it evil. He would label it, the person being a victim of human mind rather than of God consciousness, a victim of human consciousness rather than a victim of God consciousness. If the person was loving, he wouldn't be good. He would be an expression of God consciousness. If he's a murderer, he's not bad. He's an expression of human consciousness. And neither of those is good or evil. They're both what is. And good or evil is a societal labeling on it. In some cases it seems a lot more extreme, in some cases a lot less, but it's an arbitrary word. Certainly I can come up with situations in which almost anybody would decide that killing is good. And if we watch different people have to convince some people that this killing was good and that one was bad, and other people would think that killing was good and this one was bad. Some people think that executing serial murderers is good and others think it's bad. Some people think being allowed to abort fetuses is evil and others think it's good. Depending on whether you're worried about the health of the mother or the health of the child, on and on, and people in the same society will be on opposite viewpoints of that. And they'll both call the other group evil. It's very good. Such things. Yeah.
I found that I never did that there is no good or evil before I came to the flashcard, and I found it coming. I do watch myself when I'm using that word now. I catch myself, but I found myself using it a lot with animals. Like the condition. Oh, good dog. Good dog, or that they do something wrong. That and I found myself using that word a lot, and I was thinking. I don't have kids, but I can see that the conditioning that you had children, how easy it would be to say, oh, bad boy, or bad, and how easy that is to get that concept.
And it's the warm fuzzy animals that are good, and the slimy cold ones that are evil. Cockroaches don't ever get the good label. And yet they're absolutely as intrinsically good as the Cocker Spaniel puppy. Right? Or evil, or whatever. Right? There's nothing more good or evil about a cockroach than there is about a Cocker Spaniel puppy. They're both just what is.
And I guess their behavior, that's where I noticed, is the same thing. Their behavior is just what it is, and that was to the next.
And in some cases, it makes you feel good about yourself, and so you call it good.
Or in some cases, like when I went to the horse, and I'm getting thrown off the horse onto the cement.
Bad horse. Bad rider.
Exactly. All that stuff came up about how, what happened to this horse? He used to be so good, and I was able to believe we were doing that, so I noticed that myself using it a lot in those terms.
That's a good horse last week. You can tell because there's no dust on your pants. Go ahead and read the next paragraph. Oh, I'm sorry.
I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, sorry, hoping you can tell me I am wrong. I don't have any experience of not deciding something good or evil or good or ugly. Like, when I was going through the thing of maybe more of a positive person, it's like, okay, well, I had the experience of being positive, I had the experience of having a negative attitude, so I could work at making things more positive. But to have no judgment, I feel like I'm being asked to do something.
No, I don't ask you not to evaluate.
Pardon?
I don't ask you not to evaluate whether something is effective.
But I'm not going to do so.
The difference is that I can evaluate something as to whether or not it is doing what it's designed to do effectively. Okay?
For me,
For anybody.
well, isn't it be different for different people?
That's right. But you can evaluate an act as to whether or not it's effective for what it's intended to do. And there's no sense of good or evil or right or wrong or anything like that there. Is it effective? Does it do what it's intended to do?
But you're still going to have this guy and that guy. You're still going to have the people.
Some things that are effective. No, I'm evaluating with respect to doing what it was intended to do. Now, you may think that the intention was poor, but we will both look at any act, and decide how well how effective it was at doing what it was designed to do.
Could you give me an example? A murder, that's a murder.
Well, let's look at the murder. Okay, the murder was designed. The person that committed the murder did it in order to make himself happy, because this person's a real pain in the ass, and then we can evaluate whether or not he was happy as a result of the murder. Okay? And that's a perfectly valid thing. And you could say, well, that didn't work. Maybe you ought to give up murdering and try being nice to people. You could make that sort of evaluation. Barbara says it's perfectly reasonable when you find somebody that's script-ridden to say to them, gee, your way doesn't seem to be working. There are ways that do. I do that a lot when people come up to me and talk about stuff, after the morning meeting or stuff like they're talking about what's going on in their life. I say, gee, how's that working for you? Yeah, I'm not labeling it as good or bad because I know it's absolutely the best they can do, and it's just what is, but I'm asking them to make an evaluation as to the effectiveness of that path, because perhaps they might like to give up that path if it's not effective. And of course none of us do, because we're so locked into our resistance behaviors that even though we know they're ineffective, we still cling to them out of fear. Okay?
Out of fear.
Out of fear. Mm-hmm. And I say, how does that work for you? And you say, hell, why don't you try something else? Okay, I will. And then you do it again, because you can't not, because you're so fear-driven. But it's perfectly okay. Barbara's real clear about it's okay to evaluate something with respect to its effectiveness. But that doesn't put a label of good or bad or right or wrong on it. That's the arbitrary stuff. So that's the distinction there. Want to do the next paragraph?
Universal human belief is not a real entity. It has no being, no center, no self. It's just the beliefs themselves being projected and received within mind by individual human consciousness. It's as if each of us had a radio receiver and a transmitter built into us, and they're always turned on. To the extent that we're immersed in human experience, we're tuned into the universal human belief wavelength, and we're receiving all the human beliefs. We're receiving the broadcast, receiving to the part that is consistent with our current level of awareness. Believe it and rebroadcast it. We not only rebroadcast it, we also manifest it in mind since it has become part of our belief.
What that's saying is that what we call universal human belief is really just all the individual beliefs within the one consciousness, within the one mind. Okay, so be aware that there's not an entity called universal human belief. It's just all the individual beliefs. The current thought of the 6 billion is what makes up universal human consciousness in this moment. And a moment later, everybody's changed their mind, and so there's a different 6 billion thoughts that make up the universal human belief. But there's no center to it. It's just all the thoughts in human consciousness. And we pick up the ones that make sense to us. Go ahead, read the next one.
There is no one in universal human belief deciding what or to whom to broadcast.
There are just the beliefs themselves being broadcast, received and rebroadcast, thus sustaining themselves. I get my belief reinforced by my receiver and rebroadcasted. The rebroadcast reinforces someone else's belief, and they rebroadcast. There is nothing more to it than the transmitting and receiving of the human belief, which is self-sustaining in mind.
You hear that what I'm saying?
Isn't that script?
Script certainly is.
Repeating?
Script certainly is one of the things that's in fact, most of what's in universal human belief is scripts.
The repeating and reinforcing and radiating and reinforcing?
Yeah, well, that's personal, but it's also universal. What it's saying is that, I get it. I hear let's just say that I wake up in the morning and people around me have been reading the newspaper, and the newspaper says the flu epidemic is coming. I haven't read the paper yet, but I wake up in that household, and so and assuming I'm tuned into human consciousness, I'm tuned into what they're believing, and so I get the belief that there's a flu, that there's a power of flu coming, that there's a reason to worry about flu. I get that, so that's, and if my nature is that I believe in the power of flu, then I accept that, and now I believe in flu, and now I believe flu is coming, and so now I'm a broadcaster of it instead of a receiver of it. Just like that. I was a receiver of it, and I said, oh my God, flu, and now I'm a broadcaster. And the one who is broadcasting it to me now is receiving it from me. And they say, oh my God, flu, and broadcast it to somebody else. And it just goes around and around. If for one instant, nobody in the world believed in flu, that would be the end of it. Be gone, because if there was nobody broadcasting it, then nobody would pick it up, nobody would rebroadcast it, would be gone. The fact is that we just pass it around and pass it around and pass it around, and you believe it, and so I get it, and I believe it, and so you get it, and you believe it, so you get it. We just pass it around. It's just this endless rebroadcasting of these silly human ideas.
If no one in the world believed that sugar was bad for us, would it not be bad for us, or is that evaluating the effect of it? If I eat sugar, I don't feel good.
You're evaluating that sugar is bad for you.
So it's different from the flu thing.
No, the fact is that sugar doesn't have the power to make you sick. And that's a belief in the power of separate and apart from what is. Flu doesn't have, it's the same thing. Flu doesn't have the power to make you sick. Sugar doesn't have the power to make you fat.
How can I change? Yeah, the power. Okay.
I don't know if you can or not.
Okay.
Work on your beliefs.
But conversely, isn't it just, when you talk about the radiating the bad, a lot of us here have the experience with Alcoholics Anonymous stuff. Radiation that you don't have to drink.
Right. Mm-hmm. Sure. That's why it works.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's all the stuff, good stuff, bad stuff. It's part of the labels. Constructive stuff, destructive stuff. Sure. The reason AA meetings work is because you're in the consciousness of a bunch of people who believe you don't need to have a drink day. The whole story. The reason people get drunk when they stop going to AA meetings is they're no longer immersed in the consciousness. You don't get the consciousness that you don't need to drink today by going to church. Doesn't matter how holy you are. Church groups don't get you sober. AA gets you sober. Church groups do other things.
So, you used an example about people, if everybody stopped transmitting. So, somewhere there's this massive battle going on. human belief. So, and then in reading Joel, I mean, I guess, its world work and stuff starts here, like,
Sure.
by resting in silence and not being a receiver or a transmitter. But I guess, what does this scene look like if everyone were not a receiver or a transmitter?
The scene,
There wouldn't be a scene.
the picture doesn't need to change,
Oh, the picture, yeah.
but nobody would be catching the flu. There wouldn't be any flu. The flu would have no power. There might be flu germs that you can see on the microscope, and there might be viruses that you can measure on the microscope, but nobody would be reacting to it. It wouldn't be a power. Of course, that's not going to happen. I mean, it depends on, individually, if I stop tuning into human consciousness and I tune into God consciousness, then flu doesn't have power over me and I stop manifesting flu. Okay, so if we all did that, then flu would disappear. Of course, what happens is we tear up the belief in something, which we do by finding cures for it, like they're going to find a cure for AIDS, right? Someday they're going to find a cure for AIDS. And the next fatal sickness is going to manifest itself because the human need for and belief in powers of stuff like that will manifest itself. We just go from disease to disease to disease to disease. It's polio, it's tuberculosis, now it's AIDS, and who knows what, but will manifest another one because we seem to have a need to manifest diseases that will kill us.
It's become enlightened to eliminate everything.
That's right. Because it eliminates you. Go ahead. Next paragraph.
Universal human belief also has no target. It's completely impersonal. Each human responds to what's appropriate for his or her current level of awareness. But the broadcasting is universal, and it has no power. There's nothing to sustain the belief except the beliefs themselves. They are not true. No laws uphold them. They are a nothingness, just potential dust in our faucet.
So, that's all human consciousness is, all these beliefs rattling around in consciousness. And to the extent that we're believing we're human, we're human.
So if you're a child, can you be affected by the human consciousness even though you don't believe it, or you don't, let's say you don't know anything about germs, and just because you're in the consciousness, the human consciousness, you get germs?
Sure, none of us know anything about germs except a few medical scientists. We don't know anything about germs.
Like they got it before they even knew they existed.
Sure. Well, the parents believe that. I mean, little children, Joel says, I don't know what this means myself, I don't have any direct information on this, but Joel says children are under the consciousness of their parents.
So
their parents believe in all the childhood diseases, so the kids get all the childhood diseases. Yeah.
And it doesn't only extend to germs, this is anything really.
Everything, yeah. Sure, all of it, the whole package. The parents believe it, and so the kids get it, and the kids, when they're trained, of course, conditioned through life to
But you don't need to
develop their own independent beliefs in it.
know anything about it to be effective.
No, we don't. We don't know. I mean, you don't know anything about cancer. You don't know anything about polio. You don't know anything about all these diseases. I mean, but human consciousness believes that these things have power and that they manifest according to statistical charts that you can get at your insurance office. They believe that 43.729% of the people between 31 and 33 who are male who live in Southern California are going to get blah blah. And so we do. And that number is really the percent of us that are available to respond to that particular belief in human consciousness. And some of us may be available to respond to the flu belief, but not the cancer belief.
So once you wake up and you get resistance, or not resistance, you just, if you don't believe it, it won't happen.
Right.
So everything is as you believe, everything.
Right. That's the way the Leelaa works. Let's do hypnosis, and then we spend whatever time we're going talking about it, but this is the same topic. Go ahead, please.
The world is a state of hypnotism. Again, God is consciousness, infinite consciousness. Man in the universe is his consciousness formed, expressed. Therefore, since consciousness is incorporated spirit, man and the universe are incorporated spirit. Since we can't see consciousness with our eyes, can't see spirit, we are not seeing the spiritual man and the spiritual universe. That is, what is. We have never seen a tree. We have never seen it well, as it really is.
You get that? The tree is spiritual, is in spirit. The real tree is a spiritual being, just like the real you is a spiritual being. And yet all we've seen is the material tree and the material you.
Did Robert ever allude to seeing trees or something like that differently than most of us?
No. But he knew it wasn't tree.
Just see our picture of the consciousness of the tree. What we see materially.
That picture of the consciousness of us.
But aren't we in the tree one? Because we're all consciousness.
In some sense, but it's human consciousness. If you were a human being, then you wouldn't see a tree the way we do now. If you were seeing it through senses other than your five senses, you'd see a totally different tree. You'd see light. At one level where you start seeing things just radiating light. It's still just another sense of it. But what we're seeing is not a tree, but our concept, the human concept of tree. Our concept of the human concept of tree is what we see. It's what we call a tree.
All we can see with our eyes is finite. Five sense concepts of creation, formed in mind, based on the universal human beliefs. So we see concepts that are sometimes good, sometimes bad, sometimes young, sometimes old, sometimes sick, sometimes well, sometimes alive, sometimes dead. But we must remember that these are not creations of what is. These are our concepts of creation, human material concepts. When we look at each other, we don't see each other. We see the concepts of each other that we have formed in our minds, and everyone sees something different as our concepts differ.
That's clear.
So I'd like to use the word hypnotism. This world is a state of hypnotism. When a person is hypnotized, he sees, hears, tastes, touches, and smells whatever the hypnotist has put in his mind. A hypnotist can convince a subject that there's a white poodle in the room, and that person will see the white poodle, talk to it, pet it, maybe even worry about what to do with it. Of course, no one else sees the white poodle. It doesn't exist, but the hypnotized person sees it. The hypnotist has used mental power to make the subject believe in the white poodle, and her mind forms it as her experience. The fact that no one else sees it demonstrates that we each experience the content of our individual belief system.
There are over 6 billion people broadcasting human beliefs that are so strongly and consistently that we become hypnotized by them. We accept them and our minds form them as our experience.
Just like hypnotizer hypnotized that person into seeing a white poodle. The 6 billion people are radiating their beliefs so strongly that it's a mental power that hypnotizes us into seeing what they're hypnotizing us into seeing. Okay? Just like that. Go ahead.
Now, what is the substance of the white poodle? Hypnotism. There is no white poodle, just an image formed in mind by the belief of the one hypnotized. Similarly, the substance of everything we perceive with our 5 senses is hypnotism. We never see, hear, taste, touch, or smell anything but forms of hypnotism.
For example, enough humans believe in the power of the flu virus that it causes the appearance of flu. They are radiating this belief into the consciousness. Those of us who believe in the power of germs and viruses respond to it, believe it, are hypnotized by it, rebroadcast it for others to pick up, and it becomes possible for us to Some of us no longer believe in the power of the flu virus and don't respond to suggestion and can't catch flu.
Human experience is just beliefs forming in mind, rattling around, being received and reinforced. That's what the human experience is about at this level of awareness. The beliefs that hypnotize us are the ones that reflect our level of awareness. The ones we don't react to, others at different levels of awareness will. Joel also talks about subliminal advertising. In subliminal advertising, frames with messages are inserted into a movie or television show. Infrequently enough that the conscious mind does not register them, but frequently enough that the subconscious mind does register them. Many viewers who are unaware of the messages consciously obey them. Advertisements for Coca-Cola and popcorn were inserted subliminally in a movie, and the sales of those 2 items went up over 50%. Similarly, we are not conscious of the universal human beliefs coming into our consciousness. Yet, if we are susceptible to them, i.e., don't know as part of our consciousness, not part of our intellect, that they are lies, they can determine our experience. When we understand how mind and human belief work, know the truth, and recognize the lies, then we can no longer be hypnotized by them. We have raised the level of our consciousness.
So just the fact that there are 6 billion people out there believing these consistent beliefs radiates it at us subliminally. That's the point. We're not consciously aware of it, and yet we are hearing it, because there's really only one consciousness and only one mind, and we're all immersed in it. I think I said several weeks ago that if you walk into a room full of depressed people, you start feeling depressed even though nobody says anything, because you're tuned into the consciousness in the room. There's only one consciousness. AA works. We get the message in AA that you don't need to drink today, whether anybody says it or not, because we're in the consciousness. Okay, and it happens subliminally. It really is an unconscious thing. We're not aware of it, and yet it's constantly going on, constantly being radiated. And it's really so powerful that it hypnotizes us, unless we know proof. Okay? Go ahead and read the last paragraph. Stop there. 2 more paragraphs. The point is that every appearance of error has to be hypnosis. It can't be real because the nature of what's real is eternal harmony and perfection. This harmony is the outpicturing of the beliefs in human consciousness. There is no such thing as disease, death, lack, or unemployment. To the extent that we see such things, we are hypnotized. When we become dehypnotized, we will see things more in their true light.
The contents of our consciousness overall can be determined by the hypnosis from universal human consciousness.
Phil used to make the statement that there has never been a person who was sick or died. In all the existence of humanity, there has never been a man who was sick or died. All hypnosis is what we meant by that. That was one that Barbara loves to harp on because it shocked her so completely when she heard him say it. You know, it's a very difficult thing to get, but I mean, that really is where we're going. That there never has been a human being who was sick or died. All hypnosis.
Actually, we will still be somewhat hypnotized to the extent that we continue to experience having a body. So we will still experience materiality through our five senses rather than seeing spirit. But the experience will reflect more of the nature of consciousness, harmony, abundance, and fulfillment as we stop believing all the lies in human consciousness.
Self-life. I think we'll stop there. This is, what's amazing is not that we continue to be hypnotized for so long. What's amazing is that some people actually wake up, become unhypnotized. That's what's incredible. The fact that Buddha sat down under that Bodhi tree for 30 days and got it. And his statement was not that I'm enlightened or I've transcended. He said, I'm awake. He woke up. He got it. That this is all hypnosis. And, you know, and as ludicrous as it sounds, since that anybody who's not in this room right now, and they'll laugh at you and say that's nonsense. As ludicrous as it sounds, that this is all hypnosis, and that it's all being fed to us subliminally by universal human beliefs. This is the one consistent truth that every enlightened master over 5,000 years has said. You know, the enlightened people, those who have transcended, consistently say this. They use different words for hypnosis, but they all say the same thing. And hypnosis is a good word because we have practical experience with it, but hypnotism is the same as Leelaa, is the same as Maya.
So, seeing isn't believing, and believing isn't seeing, because believing doesn't make it so.
But it makes us see it.
But it makes us see it.
Yeah, believing is seeing. We see what we believe. But we're seeing our concepts. We're imagining. We're seeing our concepts. We're imagining. Actually, we're imagining what the world tells us to imagine.
Can eliminating some of these beliefs, I mean, my first thought is that it's got to be a byproduct of, you know, the cleansing of the glass, or however you want to look at it, other than, like, for example, if I tell myself there is no flu, it seems to me like I'm reinforcing that there's flu.
If you approach it that way, yeah.
I mean, it's easy for me somebody to talk about it and ignore it and say to myself nonsense. I mean, that doesn't seem to reinforce it.
Yeah.
But it seems to me it has to kind of be a byproduct of the awareness growing rather than direct.
Yeah, you can't eliminate something by attacking it. You can't solve any problem at the level of the problem. You try to convince yourself that there is no fluid, sustaining fluid, telling yourself that fluid has the power, sustains that taking anti-flu shots sustains flu. all of that works. But what works much more effectively on two is to go back over the first 4 chapters of this book slowly over and over until you really get it, that God is consciousness, okay? And consciousness and spirit are synonymous, so God is spirit. And get that God has expressed itself as a spiritual universe, okay? And all there is a spiritual universe. And if you don't even know what spiritual universe means because you don't know what spirit means, okay? That's why Joel used the infinite invisible. But get it that we can't see creation. We can't see God's creation as human beings. We can't see God's creation as human beings because it's invisible. It's spirit. So what we have to get is that what we're seeing is human concepts of God's creation that are described in terms of 5 human senses. Okay? And the human being that has the 5 human senses is one of those concepts. That human being doesn't exist. This human being doesn't exist. It's my concept of me, the spiritual being. I'm the spiritual being having this human experience. And that spiritual being is invisible, and its body is invisible, and its characteristics are the characteristics of what is harmony and eternality and things like that. And this finite, both in size and in duration and limited in intelligence and strength and all sorts of things, is all human concept. And it seems so incredibly real because we're so thoroughly hypnotized, because there are 6 billion people who believe it's true. But it doesn't seem any realer to us than that poodle seems to the person that the hypnotist hypnotizes. The hypnotist hypnotizes somebody into believing there's a poodle, and they'll see the poodle, and they'll be able to pet it and listen to it yapping, and they will believe that poodle is real exactly as much as we believe this is real.
If the goal is to be sort of indifferent then to this human hypnotism, human experience, then aren't we here in this form to learn certain lessons? Didn't we, or God, or whoever, put us here in this particular life to learn particular things so that we could move on to learn other things in the next life, or whatever that is?
That's what the Leelaa thing appears to be.
Explain that.
We're talking about there's really a God that really put you here.
No, I phrased that wrong. I mean,
that's why.
I feel like I'm here to learn stuff, and I probably need to learn it on, at least partially on the human plane, and yet to be sort of indifferent to the trials and tribulations of the human plane seems to be the goal too.
Not to be indifferent to them, to see them for what they are.
Okay. Well, that I can do. I'm thinking about
to see them for. When I say see them for what they are, I mean see them as hypnosis.
Right.
Which is the true basis of the indifference or the is that so. See, the is that so is not, is asking, is acknowledging that it's hypnosis. That it's not so. We say, look, there's a white poodle there, and I say, is that so? Because I'm refusing to be hypnotized. Just because you are.
The reason that I should use the word indifferent is something that was 5 minutes ago in the conversation was the opposite, at least that's what they say in the human hypnosis, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. And so I was thinking, that got me thinking to the opposite of good is not bad, isn't it indifference? Isn't it,
I won't buy the first statement, so I can't possibly follow into the second statement. There is no opposite to love. Love is another attribute of God, and there is no opposite to God. There's no not God. There's no not love.
I've got nothing else to throw at you, Ray.
Oh, I'm sorry.
how I guess incorrect is it to say the mind forms what consciousness is expressing?
The mind, I'll say it, I mean, essentially, yeah, let's say the mind forms or expresses what consciousness contains. Mind forms the content of the consciousness that's governing it.
Well, there's the consciousness and there's the mind. Mm-hmm. And the mind is forming the expression of it. Well,
the mind is forming the content of the consciousness, yes, and that's God and that's creation. But the same tool works locally. What I'm seeing is mind forming the content of what I'm believing, small I. Mind is the same. It works fine. It's a mirror. It's reflecting the content of the consciousness that's governing it. And where it's my consciousness governing it, then I see what I believe. So what you're seeing is your beliefs.
What I identify with, is that what my small I identifies with, that's our beliefs.
Beliefs, yeah.
Identify as a different.
Yeah. What you believe. Yeah. What you see is what you believe. And that's, to a great extent, determined by human consciousness, by human conditioning, because we're all conditioned to believe the same fundamental stuff. But then you have your own terms on it. I mean, we have local modifications, but to a great extent, what you believe is to 99% of what you believe is conditioned. 99% of what most people believe is conditioned. I don't know what your percent is.
I guess it's mute, but is it like there are certain laws, regardless, that even though I'm totally not getting it, there are still laws that are out there not even out there, but there are laws that kind of determine that there's some consistency of what we all see.
Sure. There is a creation that we're seeing our concepts of. But there is a creation. Creation is real. It's just it's your concept of it that's not real. If you go over the hill and look down into the desert, you're driving along, you go over the hill and look down into the desert, and there's the road, and it's covered with water. Okay? Now, the road's really there. Okay? And in fact, because of the heat on the road, the light rays coming off the sky bend and come up to your eyes, okay? Now that's real. The road's real. The fact that light rays bend up into your eyes is real. But your mind thinks that it's reflected, not bent, because your mind doesn't know about bent light rays. So it thinks it's reflected. And it says if it's reflected, there's got to be water there. Okay? And that's the lie. Okay? The road's really there. The sky is really there. But a wet road is your lie. Okay? That's your concept about why you can see the sky while looking at the road. All right? Now there's a very solid practical example of how it's your mind. Your mind is convinced that the road is wet. And if you didn't have any experience, you might stop your car and start making arrangements for getting the road redrained before you drove on. Okay? Depending on how seriously you believe that. And knowing the truth about how that works, you still see water on the road. Because that's what your mind said. There was water on the road. You say, no, I at the sky, and your mind says, yeah, it looks like to me. And I can drive on, right? But, it's just the sky. It's not reflecting off the road, but it looks like it is, okay? So similarly, there is a real creation. It's here, now. This is real. It's just our concept of it. It's nonsense. So yeah, you could say the fact that tides come and go regularly, and the fact that planets rotate around things nicely, and there are lots of immutable laws. Joel likes to say, roses grow on rose bushes, and apples on apple trees, and apples don't ever show up on a lemon tree, and there's never a pineapple coming out of a grapevine. And that's a sign of, obviously there's a law in creation about life begetting life, and stuff like that. There are a lot of laws that are reflected in our concepts of creation, but we're looking at our concept of creation. We're not looking at creation. That's all. God really is consciousness, and God really is expressed as creation, and it really does exist, but it really is eternal and harmonious. And we really are seeing good and bad because we've bought the beliefs in good and evil. So the flashcard. The flashcard is everything I believe is hypnosis. Of course.
Sorry, I was just thinking that. The reason I'm here is because I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. But I know that I don't know. And, for a long time, I took the positive, like you were talking, the positive consciousness, the consciousness that you choose to be in, like that. Because I've evaluated instead of having the other, sure. But I know that that's not. Now I know, but I realize that I know that now that that's not what it is.
And that it's more effective than other ways, absolutely. Sure.
There's just all that positive stuff has just been in the evolution of better than.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's still hypnosis, so it's always not what is anything.
It's all we love.
Only almost, not really, well, it's a really not the same, but
all hypnosis.
I mean, it's more that it can be attained by hypnosis.
And nobody expected to get it, but what I'm trying to do is shake the foundations. I want you to just consider the possibility that this might all be hypnosis. Or alternatively, come up with an experiment that you can use to prove to me that it isn't. If you're so convinced that this is real, prove it. I've been trying that for 30 years and I can't come up with an experiment that proves this is real. Yeah, after 8:30, let's get quiet for a minute and put a seal on this. There's some announcements there, by the way. Dulce's going to be in town over Easter. And she's going to do a class here on Easter morning, and she's going to do private sessions for people that are interested. So if you want to book a session with her, jump in early. Or if you want to come Easter morning, come. Do a little tape and talk about whatever the hell else you want to talk about. It'll undoubtedly be sweeter than what I talk about. She's a lot softer than I am. A lot more reasonable. But less reasoning? No. Okay, thanks for coming. That was y'all.